Leading COVID doctors and sporting heroes are recognised with New Year's honours. Professors Chris Whitty and Jonathan Van Tam are knighted, while Olympians Jason and Laura Kenny become the first husband and wife to become Sir and Dame on the same day.
I was just like, because you just never in your childhood dreams think you're going to be a Dame or a Sir.
Also ahead, the Health Secretary warns the NHS will be tested to its limits this month, but says further restrictions must be an absolute last resort. As new post-Brexit border checks kick in, British importers say the cost of extra paperwork will be passed on to customers. And leaving it late, leaders Man City snatched 3 points at Arsenal with a winner in added time.
This is ITV News with Duncan Golestani.
Good evening. The senior doctors who have been leading the UK's COVID response are among those recognised with top awards in the New Year's honours list. Professor Chris Whitty and his deputy Jonathan Van Tam are both knighted, along with the chief medical officers in Scotland and Wales. Actresses Joanna Lumley and Vanessa Redgrave are made dames, but it's sporting stars who are stealing the spotlight in 2022, with scores of Olympians being honoured, including cyclists Jason and Laura Kenny, who become the first married couple to be made Sir and Dame at the same time. Nina Nana went to get their reaction.
Kenny takes the title!
Tokyo simply cemented their superpower status. Jason Kenny now the most successful Olympian cyclist in history. Laura Kenny becoming the first British woman to win gold at 3 consecutive Olympic Games. Now they have 2 more medals to add to their 12 golds.
Honestly, when I opened it, because we weren't together, were we? I was just like, because you just never in your childhood dreams think you're going to be a Dame or a Sir.
12 gold medals between you. These extra medals you're receiving, where do they stand in the grand scheme of things?
They're very special, aren't they? I think. You know, obviously you don't want to compare the two. You don't want to upset anyone, but they're very special. I think it's magic, isn't it?
We only ride bikes. There's people out there that do bigger things, like fighting for our country.
78 Olympians and Paralympians have been honoured in all, including diver Tom Daley and wheelchair racer Hannah Cockcroft, who picked up her 6th gold medal in Tokyo. An MBE too for young tennis star Emma Raducanu after her historic US Open win. Amongst a number recognised for their continuing work during the pandemic are England's Chief Medical Officer Professor Chris Whitty, along with his counterparts in Scotland and Wales, who were all knighted. Jonathan Van Tam also becomes a Sir, while the head of the UK Health Security Agency, Dr Jenny Harris, is made a Dame.
Light!
And in the arts, there is a damehood for Joanna Lumley.
I'm old, I'm 75 and I'm still here, and I've been working for 50 years in the business. And so maybe they look around and go, look, she's still here, she's still doing stuff. I hope it's because of, fun that one's brought into people's lives in the stuff that we've done, which thanks to Jennifer Saunders, things like Absolutely Fabulous, which sort of seem to live on.
Former Spice Girl Mel B receives an MBE for her work with the domestic violence charity. She has dedicated it to women suffering abuse in all shapes and forms. And there's an OBE for Pauline Black, the lead singer of the two-tone band The Selector. From those honoured for a lifetime of achievement to those like 12-year-old Max Woozy just starting out, he's raised hundreds of thousands of pounds for his local hospice by camping in a tent since March last year.
Just absolutely incredible, because I'm one of the youngest people to win it, and I think it's just definitely one of my biggest achievements.
It has been another challenging 12 months, but with some extraordinary and unprecedented moments, not least for the history-making Kennys.
You know, we're very lucky we get to share our careers together anyway, and so yeah, to get to share honours, I suppose, is very, very special, even more special.
You're going to be extra grand at home from now on?
I don't think we could be grand, could we, Jace?
I'll speak for yourself.
Nina Nannar, ITV News in Cheshire.
Separately from the main honours list, Buckingham Palace has announced Tony Blair will be given the most senior knighthood by the Queen. Our political correspondent Romilly Weeks joins me now. Romilly, it's 14 years since Mr Blair left Downing Street. What should we be reading into this now then?
Well, Duncan, so Tony Blair, as he becomes, could read something into the length of time it's taken for the Queen to give him this gong. This is the most senior order of knighthood. It is a gift only bestowed by the Queen and traditionally on former Prime Ministers. If Tony Blair had a glance at how long it's taken other Prime Ministers to be rewarded, he would see that for Margaret Thatcher it was 5 years. For Harold Wilson, he was given it immediately, and John Major just 8 years. He might be wondering why only Ted Heath took longer than him, his 14 years, to be rewarded by the Queen. And allegedly, Ted Heath had a little bit of a tricky relationship with the Queen. There had been speculation that perhaps the Queen didn't like the way that Tony Blair had handled some of the arrangements for Princess Diana's funeral. What is certain is that the delay has held up other Prime Ministers, former Prime Ministers, being rewarded. So this award could mean that others follow for the likes of Cameron, Brown and May. If there is any lingering resentment on Tony Blair's part, he is hiding it well, saying today, "It is an immense honour to be appointed Knight Companion of the Most Noble Order of the Garter, and I am deeply grateful to Her Majesty the Queen." So, Sir Tony Blair, it is.
It is. Romilly, thank you. The Health Secretary has warned the NHS will be tested to its limits this month as the Christmas wave of Omicron infections adds to the normal winter pressures. England broke another record for daily cases in the last 24 hours, while the number of COVID patients in hospital has risen 68% in a single week. Despite that, Sajid Javid says further restrictions must be an absolute last resort as we enter our third year of the pandemic. Neil Connery reports.
Big Ben's bongs were back to chime in 2022 after a restoration project lasting nearly 4 years. These were scaled back New Year celebrations as COVID's impact continues to be felt. Many following the advice to be cautious meeting up as the record-breaking wave of Omicron continues. While some may have been preoccupied with hangover cures this morning, the COVID vaccine booster campaign continues apace. At this pharmacy, they were busy jabbing.
People are still coming in for vaccinations. We encourage everybody to come in. We're encouraging walk-ins. We're taking in appointments. So I think since the rollout of the boosters, everybody does want to get it done. And it's important everybody gets their boosters done.
Those getting boosted today agreed.
Oh, vitally important. I just want to make sure that I can't pass or minimise my chance of passing on the virus to anybody else.
I'm hopeful that it's going to get milder and milder, and people seem to be less hospitalisation. So, 2022, I'm hoping is the one we get back to normality.
The Health Secretary Sajid Javid says the country must give itself the best chance of living alongside the virus.
Hi there, how are you?
He said curbs on our freedoms must be an absolute last resort, and warned a big increase in people needing care from the NHS over the next month will likely test the limits of finite NHS capacity, even more than a typical winter. The number of COVID patients in hospitals in England rose by nearly 70% last week. Now NHS trusts say they may have to start using surge facilities, like this temporary hub erected at St George's Hospital in London as soon as the end of next week.
Well, the government is responsible for setting the restrictions, and we've been very clear at every point over the last 2 or 3 weeks, which is the government should be ready to introduce further restrictions as and when they are needed, and if the evidence shows they are needed, and they should be ready to do that at pace.
COVID case figures and hospitalisations over the next week will be crucial in determining the direction and scale of Omicron's impact on the NHS in January. Neil Connery, ITV News.
The state funeral has been held for anti-apartheid campaigner Archbishop Desmond Tutu in Cape Town. South Africa's president described him as the spiritual father of the nation and a crusader in the struggle for freedom, equality and peace around the world. John Ray was watching the service.
It was a mark of his humility, the plain pine coffin, the cheapest available, according to Desmond Tutu's own instruction. for a funeral service. At the Cape Town Cathedral, he'd made a sanctuary against racial injustice. In dark times, he'd brought light, the key message sent by video from the head of the Anglican Church.
That light has lit up countries globally that were struggling with fear, conflict, persecution, oppression, where the marginalised suffered.
Tutu's family led the mourners, whose numbers were limited by COVID precautions. But millions remember a man described as second only to Nelson Mandela in South African history. He was called the spiritual father of the multiracial rainbow nation, the term he coined, a fearless opponent of apartheid when others were jailed or exiled or murdered. The service was a blend of requiem mass and joyous African voices, in tune with the character of a cleric who became a global icon of peace and reconciliation.
Archbishop Desmond Tutu was without question a crusader in the struggle for freedom, for justice, for equality and for peace, not only in South Africa, the country of his birth, but around the world as well.
At the end, Desmond Tutu's body emerged into the bright African sunshine, a fitting symbol of the irrepressible hope and good humour that is his legacy. John Ray, ITV News.
British importers are warning border regulations that kick in from today could lead to further delays, shortages and higher prices in shops. The Cold Chain Federation says the new post-Brexit customs checks and paperwork for goods arriving from the EU will add costs of up to £400 per consignment. The Prime Minister has promised to go further and faster this year to take advantage of what he called the enormous potential that our new freedoms bring. Martha Fairley reports.
The UK imports 5 times more food from Europe than it exports. But under new Brexit rules from today, all animal and plant products coming here from the EU require a full customs declaration. And hauliers are warning the additional paperwork and added costs could cause delays at ports and lead to food supply shortages.
And so I think where we're going to see problems in the coming weeks is businesses suddenly realising they can't, the cost of trading with the UK has gone up quite significantly and the complexities of doing so is significant. And some will cope with that and others will actually start to stop trading with the UK as a result.
But it's not just food. The rules will also affect the import of items like leather goods and accessories, putting small businesses like this one under additional pressure.
I have to decide whether I pass on the costs or whether I absorb them. I can't absorb them, so I have to pass them on. Now, that means that my products are going to be more expensive, and indeed, the umbrellas, the gloves, etc., are also going to be more expensive. So the customers will really think, well, do I need to continue buying?
The Cheshire Cheese Company was forced to stop exporting to Europe last year because every order had to be sent with a costly vet certificate. And when their European counterparts get a taste of this same red tape, they may also decide it's not worth trading with the UK.
Only once the EU small producers feel the pain we've had for the last 12 months and realise the difficulty and the increasing costs that they will suffer, only then I think will we have a kickback on both sides that will actually force the politicians to sit down and actually have a common sense agreement on this.
The Prime Minister says he wants to maximise on the benefits of Brexit, but this new layer of paperwork could end up delaying or even stopping the flow of some goods from Europe. Martha Fairley, ITV News.
The victim of a fatal stabbing in Croydon has been named as 15-year-old Zayn Amable-Lina. Police have started a murder investigation after officers found the teenager in a park. An ambulance was called, but he died at the scene. And the UK has recorded its warmest ever New Year's Day temperature. 16.2 Celsius was registered in St James's Park, London today, the highest since 1916. Overnight temperatures hit 16.5 in Bala in North Wales, a record for New Year's Eve. It's been attributed to a warm flow of subtropical air from the Azores. And finally, there was a thrilling end to Arsenal's match with Manchester City this lunchtime at the Emirates. An injury time strike from Rodri saw the league leaders secure a 2-1 win. It means Man City move 11 points clear at the top of the Premier League table. Chris Scudder was watching the action.
New year and new face. Albert Stuyvenberg standing in for Arsenal coach Mikel Arteta, struck down by COVID. For a while, it all worked like a dream. Redemption in a World Cup year for the youngster who ran the gauntlet of hate after missing a penalty in England's ill-fated Euros final. Arsenal were flying until Bernardo Silva went flying under Xhaka's challenge. No penalty at first, but enter VAR, and referee Stuart Atwell changed his mind. Arsenal were furious, City were level.
Who scores?
In a frantic encounter, City were saved from going behind again by Ake's fantastic goal line clearance. And moments later, Arsenal's Gabriel was sent off.
His second yellow card, and all of a sudden it's falling apart for Arsenal.
You sensed what was coming, a City winner.
He scored! It's Rodri!
It was all a bit unsavoury as City celebrated in Arsenal faces, but heat of the moment stuff, and the champions go 11 points clear to start 2022. Chris Scudder, ITV News.
And that is it. The weather forecast follows. We're back with the late news at 11:15. Until then, have a very good evening. Bye-bye.